All right, everyone. Let's see if you can see me. All right, hello, everyone. We're about to play Titanic Honor and Glory. Let me know if you can hear me all right in the chat, and yeah, and if you can see me okay, if everything looks fine. Um, go ahead and reduce that for now. Let me go to my channel so I can watch the stream. Cool. That way I have the live chat here for everybody. So hello everyone. I'm not going to spend the time to individually say hello to every single person like I do for my tea time streams, only because I'm sure there's a lot of people here who just want to get into the game. But I do have your live chat up on my phone, so I should be able to see what you guys are saying. So hello everybody, and let's go ahead and explore demo 401. We'll do day, because I think sometimes we do nighttime, and we'll do first class. Alrighty, so let's see. Everybody says they can hear me. They hear everything. That's good. Project Amos or Amiss. You gonna go watch Titanic's 25th anniversary in the theaters next month? You know, I want to, but apparently it's only for one day, and I really don't feel like being stuffed in like sardines in a can. I have really bad anxiety in movie theaters. So, you know, I was really looking forward to it if it was like a multi-day or even like a whole month kind of thing. And I would have gone like one of the last days or something. But when I found out that that's not the case, I don't think I'll be doing it now. And then I found out it's going to be in 3D, which is not something I want to see. I don't want to see Titanic in 3D. Which also kind of sucks too, because I was really looking forward to them kind of refreshing the movie in 4K so I can get it on Blu-ray. And then I found out that they're doing it in 3D, which makes me think that even the 2D Blu-ray will still be the 3D version that's been flattened. And they did that with Jurassic Park. They released a version of it that was 2D, but it was the 3D version that was turned 2D, and it looked terrible. I couldn't stand it. I threw that one out. So I'm kind of worried. I'm like, oh, great. I've been waiting all this time for a 4K Titanic, and it's probably going to be the 3D version of the 2D 4K. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm very picky about how my movies look. I like them to look like they did when they came out in theaters. So, yeah. We're in the first class dining room. Let's see. Hello, Lori. Yeah, there's a lot of rumor that the EP Ripley is back at Disneyland being tested. But that's just what people say. I'm one of those people that I say I'll believe it when I see it, because it's been gone for so many years. And there's been so many times that people have falsely reported that it's back at the park. I know there's photographs, but those could be old photographs. So I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. So, yeah. Avril Lavigne says, this is amazing. Yeah, it really is. I love this game. I can't wait till the version 1.5 comes out. Version 1.5 will... See, this version is about 30% of the ship, so you can explore about 30% of it. The only thing, though, is that in this version, it's not as optimized for computers. So it is more difficult to run. You have to have a somewhat powerful gaming computer to run it. But version 1.5 will be better optimized. And what was I going to say? Version 1.5 will be better optimized, and it will be 50% of the ship. Literally half of the ship will be available to roam. What is that? Yeah. So half the ship will be available to roam, and it will be released on Steam, which is the gaming sort of release platform for getting a bunch of games and stuff. So when that is released, I'm going to be super excited. I'm definitely going to download it and play it a lot. And I'm going to get my dad to react to it too. Because he's never played anything like this. And he does like Titanic, you know, a lot. I wouldn't say he's like a big super fan. Neither am I. I'm not a big super fan. But you know, it is really cool to be able to explore these, you know, something like Titanic, which is one of the old-fashioned ocean liners that I certainly love ocean liners. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to get him to react to it. What is that? Oh. You can see steam billowing. I never noticed that before. I didn't update this game, so it's not like it's a new update. Weird. Moans or yes, strep throat. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't like strep throat. I used to get that every year. It was terrible. Brian says, I understand if they added extra scenes and maybe fixed some of the errors, if there are any, but just adding 4K HDR and 3D I think is not worth it to release it in cinemas. Well, I mean, it is going to be the 25th anniversary. That alone is worth releasing in cinemas. You know, it's not like it's just some random, you know, thing where they're just like, oh, we're just going to pop it back in theaters. It's the 25th anniversary. It's been a quarter of a century since it was released. So I think a lot of people are happy to celebrate that. I know I certainly would be, again, if it hadn't been a situation where it's going to be in 3D. I like 3D for movies that were designed in 3D. But movies not designed in 3D, it's just weird. It's weird for me because seeing them in 2D my whole life and then going into 3D, just, it's weird. And then the other thing too is to convert a 2D movie into 3D, you have to really alter the images. Sometimes you crop things out or zoom things in order to make them three-dimensional, and that's the part that that kind of bothers me. It's like, again, Jurassic Park is a good example. In order to make it 3D, what they did was they digitally cut out the characters and then zoomed them in a little bit, so that way there was a little bit of background on either side of their body. So when you see it in 3D, it appears in 3D. But then that means that some of the background is gone. I mean, it's a small amount, but it's still it's just weird. And then they did something weird where they digitally enhanced their hairdos, so that way there was no like weird little strands of hair sticking out. And I thought, why? Just keep it in there. Like, you know, nobody's going to be so obsessed like, oh my gosh, John Hammond's hair is like sticking out the top of his scalp. Like, it's just, no, it's, you know, just keep it the way it was. Second class stewards. I'm not a cabin necessarily. It's a bunk room, I guess. I don't remember what to call it, but it's a big room where a bunch of the second class stewards slept. Can you imagine being a steward on one of these old ocean liners, just kind of huddled in with a bunch of other people in a massive room like this? And I mean, it's clean, you know, it's not like it's like, you know, it's not going to be like all grimy and dirty like it is in that show 1899, you know, but it's clean. It's just, can you imagine living on one of these ships? I wouldn't want to live on one of these ships as a steward, but as a passenger, yeah, I mean, you know, who knows? It'd be kind of fun for a while. I'd kind of miss certain things like TV. Well, I don't watch TV, I guess. I watch YouTube a lot when I do watch stuff. Miles says, what part of the ship would you like to see them replicate? On Titanic? Well, the part I really wanted to see is what they're already replicating. So my dream is coming true. They're replicating the engine room for Titanic Honor and Glory. So you'll be able to see that when version 1.5 comes out. Again, it'll be free, so everybody will be able to see it. But yeah, the engine room will be the coolest part. So yeah. Yeah, I'm a Steam fanatic. So I love, Steam railroads, Steam engines, all kinds of stuff like that. Steam tractors. Eventually I'll make a video about Steam tractors, but yeah, so that is kind of like a fun thing, Electric bath. Here is the hydrotherapy. Or what was then hydrotherapy. I don't think hydrotherapy is the same today. Basically, you get sprayed with water. Oppenheimer. You know what movie I want to see is Amsterdam. A lot of the movie Amsterdam, the recent movie, because I think there was an older movie called Amsterdam, but the recent movie Amsterdam, a lot of that was filmed on the Queen Mary. And I'm like the world's biggest Queen Mary fan. So I really want to see that movie, if only just to see how they used the ship for the scenes. A lot of movies and TV shows are filmed on the Queen Mary. In fact, right now, the 1923 show, I forget, I think it's Paramount Plus, 1923. Some of that was filmed on the Queen Mary. So it'll be interesting to see how they use it. These are the Turkish baths, by the way, folks, that we're going in. That's why they're so decorated. Let's see. Somebody said happy birthday, Mike. Ah, Mike's birthday is on Tuesday. Awesome. Happy birthday. First class swimming pool. Ging Ging says, hey, Alex, would you visit the Strauss Suite? Absolutely. It's one of my favorite places to be on this ship. Shall we go for a dip? Ah, there we go. I was looking for the crouch. There we go. Glub, glub. Glub, glub. Glub, glub. I don't know what sound people make when they swim. I think that's like the sound of a fish. I don't know. Here's the changing rooms. Interesting that they're like literally right next to the swimming pool. But then again, it kind of makes sense. Back then, people didn't dress in their bathing suits and then walk around places in them like they do today. You literally you dressed into your bathing suit and then immediately into the water because it was just considered appropriate and proper to just get in and out, especially, women dressed in bathing suits. That was a big deal, was like, is it appropriate for women to swim? That kind of thing. At least in the Victorian era. I think by the 1910s, it was a bit more relaxed, but in the Victorian era, you pretty much didn't see women swim except for just a few who were brave enough, and thought that, maybe their reputation wouldn't be harmed by being seen in a bathing suit. But, of course, that has a lot to do with, British high class and less to do with the world in general. Possibly even American high class as well. I don't think the lower classes, I don't think it was nearly as much pressure put on women to be seen or not be seen in a bathing suit. Let's see. Miles says Liberace did a special on the Queen Mary in the late 1970s. Yep, that is true. Liberace did a special. To the Strauss suite. I love looking at the staircase. Gang, I'm not sure if there is a movie about SS United States. Moonzer. I don't understand your question, Moonzer. Do you know what the 2005 most haunted TV episode aired? I don't know what episode for where, when. Well, I guess when is answered, but where? C deck, so this is the deck we need to be. I always like the Purser's Office. I'm kind of hoping the Purser's Office will be a version that we can explore in the new demo version. I was watching a live stream where I watched his name is escaping me for some reason. Matt DeWinkler. He was designing the Purser's Office. I watched a live stream where he was doing it. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm kind of hoping that when version 1.5 comes out, it'll have the Purser's Office available to explore. This is the Strauss suite, everybody. I think a lot of people remember it because it was used as one of the suites that Rose and her family were in the movie Titanic. They used a lot of different suites, like the best suites on Titanic, and then morphed them together for the movie into like one long string of suites. But you know, there was only like a couple of suites on this level and then the level above and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it is a beautiful room. This is particularly my favorite room because of the walls, the wood paneling on the walls. I was having a conversation the other day where it's funny because like very good wood paneled walls are no longer part of the interior design of today. So whenever people do use wood paneling or some kind of wood feature in interior design in modern buildings, they don't use the really fine woods. They use cheaper woods. Like the most expensive wood they would use would be oak. And oak looks nice, you know, but you know, there are much finer woods out there. Like even an English elm burr looks really beautiful, or you know, or something. That one might be extinct actually. I don't remember, but you know, there are some really fine woods. Like my favorite wood is Makassar ebony. I've seen it on the Queen Mary, and I'd never seen a wood like it before, and I had to own something Makassar ebony. So I bought a letter opener. It's a vintage letter opener from like the 1930s, I think, but it's made of Makassar ebony and a little bit of bakelite for decoration. But yeah, you know, but in today's modern interior design, did I show you guys the bath? Did I go for like full into it? I didn't, did I? So in today's modern interior design, when they do use wood for decoration, they use a really cheap wood. And so people in this day and age, they don't know the difference between a beautiful wood grain versus like a ordinary wood grain. So it's no wonder why a lot of people can't appreciate wood paneling. They think of wood paneling as something that's old and outdated, and they go, oh, you know, I don't want something that looks like, you know, an office from the 1970s, you know. You know, I was looking like, there's like a fake paneling in my dad's car. And You know, it's designed to look nice, of course, as part of the interior design of the car. But I was looking at the wood paneling today in the car, the fake wood paneling, and it's designed to look like a brown oak. And I was just kind of like, this is a very boring. Like, why would they choose this? If they're gonna make a fake wood paneling for the car, why wouldn't they choose a really exotic looking wood? You know, like quilted maple or something that just really catches your eye. Instead, they use this really boring oak wood, and I'm like, if you're gonna fake something, fake the best, you know. Just kind of like, I know I'm like going crazy talking about wood paneling, but it's because I truly believe that the designs of the past are far more beautiful than the designs used today. And I think a lot of interior designers today, I don't know, they don't want to risk using older design techniques. They want to go with something that's really simple, like very simple, you know, stark white colors, metal, you know, stuff like that. Stuff that is, no matter what shape you morph it in, it looks good. But wood is a lot trickier. If you don't use it the right way, it might not look nice. So, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling on and on. Let's answer some questions here. Project Amos says, first class people do not use the toilet. That's not true. They do use the toilet. Everybody used the toilet in 1912. Mark says, people don't care about monogamy anymore. They just want a veneer of monogamy. Do you mean mahogany? Monogamy is a practice where you keep one partner. I'm like, I think you mean mahogany. What? Unless I'm misunderstanding. Tractors says, how are you? I'm doing great, Tractors. How about you? Let's go to second class. This is the aft grand staircase. Here is the Titanic's barber shop. Queen Mary technically had 2 barber shops and 3 salons. I say that because there was a barber shop for first and second classes, while there were technically 2 salons for first and second class. So it was divided between men and women. But in third class, they shared the same room. So they would have 2 chairs like this, and then one side would be a salon chair for women, divided by a curtain, and then a barber chair for men. And that was third class on Queen Mary. So Queen Mary had 3 salons, but 2 barbershops. Titanic, I believe it only had 1 barbershop and one salon maybe. But this is the 1 barbershop, and it's for first class. But I could be wrong, and please correct me if I am wrong, because I do not consider myself an expert on Titanic. If anything, I would be more of an expert at Queen Mary, which was a ship that existed 24 years after Titanic. So a lot of things changed with the design of ships in those 24 years. This is the Maids and Valets Saloon. You can say valet, but it is also equally correct to say valet, and I prefer to say valet. I was actually looking earlier. I have a video about the Maids and Valets Saloon on Queen Mary. So it's called, the video is called Queen Mary's Mysterious Annex. and that was a video I did about Queen Mary's Maids and Valets. It's a very interesting video if you want to learn about, you know, what the Maids and Valets did on Queen Mary. Pretty interesting. Now let's continue on to second class. Maybe we'll make a pit stop in the surgery of Titanic. Mark says, haha, monogamy versus mahogany. It's a line from Kath and Kim. Maybe an Aussie thing. I've never heard of Kath and Kim. Or Kath and Kim. Sorry, my phone is like way out in front of me and it's hard to see the little writing. Rudolph says, this is so cool. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it is really neat. All right, so I'm going to show you. This is a cool thing. I haven't seen this on other ships. Titanic so far is the only one I've seen it on, but it's a padded room. So some people have asked, like, what happens when there's like some really rowdy passengers, you know, someone that's violent maybe. And this padded cell would be one of the places that they would be kept. I mean, there were other places, you know, depending on the severity of the situation, they could be kept in a stateroom or whatnot, but if they were a particularly dangerous person, they could be kept in the padded cell. But I haven't seen a padded cell on Queen Mary or other ships, but Queen Mary did have ways of locking people up if they needed to be. As far as I know, there was no need to ever lock anybody up. Don't believe the stories you hear on Queen Mary about somebody murdering their family and chopping them up into pieces. That's a completely fake story. Well, it's not a completely fake story, actually. It was a real story, but it happened in England, not on the Queen Mary. There we are. So here is a little passage. This is for second class. This area acts as an indoor promenade for second class passengers. And they could make a big loop by going out through that door there, go around the aft well deck, and then come around the other side and use this passage to make their full loop. And believe it or not, Queen Mary had a very similar design. It was on main deck. So on main deck, you would come out from, well, I mean, there was door access to first class, but not for, you know, it was a one-way kind of thing. First class passengers could explore, but second class could not. But nevertheless, it was just like this. There was an indoor pathway and it looped around everything just like this. And that was, yeah, that was on Queen Mary. So it was very, very similar to this on Titanic. So here we are in the little lobby room of second class. Chris says, hey, Alex, you should make a video about Armis Queen Mary's hospital and medical staff. I want to, but I have to go to the ship to film more of the ship. So I know a lot of people have you know, asked me questions like, hey, can you make a video about this on Queen Mary and that on Queen Mary? And I definitely want to, but I need to go back to the ship to film more because I don't have enough footage to make a video. You know, obviously, you know, if you want to make a video, you need to have something to show people. And so I only have a few photographs, and otherwise I'd have to use footage that has nothing to do with the subject matter to fill in the rest. So it'd be like random shots of, like, you know, the Queen Mary in random places, and it just wouldn't feel right in a video. People would be like, why are you showing like the main lounge when we're talking about the surgery room or something, you know? So I need to go back to the ship to film more of it, to make very specific videos about everything. But yeah, I definitely do want to make a video about Queen Mary's surgery room and hospital ward and everything, and the isolation wards as well. Really quick, this is the second class library on Titanic. It acted as a main lounge of sorts for second class. And I always say, every time I come in here, I'm always like, they should have just called it the second class main lounge, because it's hardly a library. Like, that's their bookcase, like the one bookcase in the whole room. It's hardly. Oh, another interesting thing that I like about Titanic Honor and Glory, this game, is all the clocks are accurate. So right now it is 4:01 p.m. Where I live, and it is 4:01 p.m. on that clock there. I know that's like probably normal for like a video game maybe, but I think it's so cool. It's like it's the exact same time everywhere on Titanic as it is in real life where I live. I love that. Brian asking about whether Jack should have been put in the padded cell. Again, it's based off of, like, the offense. He was a thief. So it was not appropriate to put him in the padded cell if he's just a thief. He'd have to be a violent offender to be put in the padded cell in Titanic. So I think where they put him, the master at arms' office, that actually seems perfectly appropriate, because he hadn't been processed by the master at arms yet. They would have needed to question him and stuff, and so he was technically only under temporary arrest until they could investigate the situation. So actually, him being shackled at the master at arms' office actually was pretty accurate in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong, but I think it was pretty accurate. This is the second class dining saloon. A lot of ships before Titanic had dining saloons just like this, even for first class. The chairs were fixed to the floor. They swiveled so you could turn them around, sit down, and then you turn around, you sit down, and then you swivel into place like that. That's how you got in and out. Was not necessarily easy, but it worked. So yeah, and so they still had it for second class and third class, but on Titanic, the first class passengers had individual chairs. Now, I know on Queen Mary, all three classes, their chairs were individual chairs that could be moved to a certain degree. They were still roped and hooked to the floor with special tie ropes. So you could move them enough that you could scoot the chair out, sit down, and scoot yourself in, or the host would scoot your chair in for you. Either way, and that was for all three classes on Queen Mary. But yeah, but they had to be hooked with ropes because, as you know, these old ships, they rolled a lot. All the old ships rolled a lot more than today's modern cruise ships. You go on a cruise ship today and it's very, very stable I should say steady, not stable. Steady in comparison to these old ocean liners. But yeah, the old ocean liners, they would really roll. There's a picture I really like that was taken aboard RMS Olympic, and it shows the promenade deck while the ship is rolling in really heavy seas. And the cameraman took the picture at level with the horizon, but you could see that the ship itself was completely tilted to the point where you'd think the cameraman probably, at one point slid, across the promenade to the wall. So, I mean, because it was so steep. But yeah, these old ships, they would really roll. So everything had to be hooked down to the floor. As for what kind of roller Olympic and Titanic and Britannic were, I don't know. I know SS Normandy was considered a snappy roller, which means that she would roll to one side and then she'd quickly correct herself, which could actually be, some people would consider that more uncomfortable than a slow roller like Queen Mary. Queen Mary was a slow roller, so that meant that she would roll to one side and then she'd take quite a while to get back upright. But being a snappy roller, that can be unnerving. So, but as for like how Olympic rolled, was it snappy? Was it slow? I actually don't know. Maybe somebody else can answer that for me. Now, that was second class. We only went into one of the... No, we went to two. We went to the dining room. We went to the main lounge. There was one more room. The smoking room. We didn't go to second class smoking room. Super says, just realized there are no ship map anywhere. Titanic would be a confusing ship to navigate inside. Well, I'm sure there was a ship map on the actual Titanic, but in Titanic Honor and Glory, not everything is fully installed on the ship in this game. This is the library. I think we have to go out here. I'm stuck. No, it's one level up. It's one level up. A little bit of lag right there. John says Titanic was designed with Art Nouveau influence, not Art Deco, just an FYI. I don't know if that was meant for me, but yes, I know Titanic was designed with some Art Nouveau, mostly neoclassical style, actually. There is very little Art Nouveau on Titanic, actually. It's mostly neoclassical styles. But yes, Queen Mary was Art Deco. I don't know if I made it sound like I was talking about Art Deco on Titanic, but I wasn't. I was specifically referring to Queen Mary, so I apologize if I made that a bit confusing for people. But yeah, I talk about Queen Mary a lot because I know more about Queen Mary than I know about Titanic. So when I see stuff on Titanic, it reminds me of stuff I know about Queen Mary. Let's see. So this is the first class smoking room, by the way, folks. It's a nice little room. Very green. I'm not much a fan of the color green unless it's on trees. So... Mark says the second class dining saloon was very attractive for the day. Indeed, it was. Actually, the second class dining saloon is one of my favorite rooms on Titanic. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I like Titanic's second class dining saloon more than I like their first class dining saloon. Ken says, hey, Alex, got an ON30040 Porter at the Ridgefield, Washington train show today. Gonna get a little 3D printed tender for it. It's new, but kind of noisy. Oh, I see. Yeah, you know what? Those little porters are kind of noisy. Nathan says, not related to Titanic, but I always wondered how the Queen Elizabeth sank, despite it only catching fire, to my knowledge. Did the ballast system fail? No, the reason why Queen Elizabeth sank was because the fireboats were spraying a ton of water on the boat, on the ship, I mean. And with all that water being sprayed on the ship, it had nowhere else to go but inside the ship. And it was a lot of water. It was a lot of water. And so as it settled into the ship, it made the ship uneven, made it list, and then after listing, it lost balance and then capsized. So that's how it happened on Queen Elizabeth. And the same thing happened for SS Normandy. When SS Normandy caught fire in New York, it also capsized later because they were spraying it with water with the fireboats. But the thing is that it's obvious they didn't learn anything from Normandy when they were trying to fix the Queen Elizabeth, which is that. So I don't. It's kind of a somewhat well-known story, but the engineer of Normandy was actually there in New York when the ship caught fire, and he was there telling the fire marshals to open the ballast cocks or the no, it was the bilge cocks. So those are like valves that allow water in or out of the ship. And if you open them and flood the bottom of the ship with water, the ship should sink evenly and hit the bottom in a shallow harbor, that is. And it'll sit upright, and you can blast it with water and it won't capsize because it's already settled at the bottom. Of course, that means you will be flooding the boiler rooms and stuff like that, but that's better than the ship capsizing and destroying the rest of it. But according to the story, the New York fire marshals did not listen to him, and they just kept spraying it with water until Normandy finally capsized. And the same thing happened for Queen Elizabeth. Nobody opened up the bilge cocks to allow water to flood the ship and let it settle. So it capsized, and but who knows? Maybe the fire damage was just so bad that it wouldn't have been salvageable anyway, or perhaps it was just too dangerous to go into the ship while it was on fire. So, all right, let's go down to third class. That was all the second class spaces for you guys. Chris says the Olympic class ocean liners were considered as a slow roller. Interesting. Knuckles says, I know that there were three of the Olympic class with various different features, but were there passenger ships that were identical in all but name, like locomotive standardization? Yeah, if I have it correctly, there was the White Star Line Big Four. To the best of my knowledge, those were all virtually identical. The Big Four. But I could be wrong about that. I'm still learning about ocean liners, you guys. I know more about trains and steam engines and stuff than I know about ocean liners. So I'm very new. I only got into ocean liners in the year 2020. So I really have very, very little knowledge of them. This is a map of all the White Star Line routes around the world. You can see the biggest dotted lines are in the Atlantic, North Atlantic, because that's where they got most of their business. All right, let's head over to, see, I would go down there, but they blocked it, so you can't go further down. But this is third class. Normally, the second class doors would be closed, so third class people couldn't just wander around. But yeah, we are in third class on Titanic. We are technically on a part of the ship that is called Scotland Road, but this is the more spindly version of Scotland Road, the part that's furthest aft on the ship and stuff like that. See, I would, when I see a gate like this, it makes me want to jump over it and go down, but because, I just want to keep exploring. But, when the new version of the ship is released, maybe we'll be able to see a lot more of it. I mean, we will for sure. I mean, it's 50% of the ship, so. One of the cargo hatches. It was just like this on Queen Mary as well. You had these removable beams, and they could deck them over so that way each level could be filled with cargo if needed, but otherwise they could be removed so you can lower the cargo all the way down into the bottommost level. So Queen Mary had this as well, but she had a lot less cargo shafts than Titanic did. Titanic had quite a few. Watertight door. All right, now let's continue down Scotland Road the other way. The part that everybody recognizes. It's kind of spooky when you see this, you know, it's like a labyrinth of rooms around Titanic. When the official game, not the demo, but the official game comes out in Titanic Honor and Glory, done in Unreal Engine 5, you should be able to walk into any room, virtually any room on the ship, and, you know, wander around. There should technically, as they described it, literally be no doors that are locked against you. You could go anywhere you want. But in the demo versions, obviously, the ship is not complete because it's only a demo. This is, oh, I forgot to read the top. This is the, it's not on here, but this is the engineers mess hall. So the engineers were the people that worked at the bottom of the ship. They did various things like they managed the people that were, you know, stoking the boilers, managed the people that were, you know, running the engine room and stuff like that. So various engineers, they were like higher up. They wore the nice, you know, the nice uniforms, and yeah, I'm trying my best to describe it, but I don't have all the words. But yeah, pretty neat. And one of the cool things about this room is they have a picture of the recently crowned King George the Fifth. Yeah. No. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. I almost completely, yeah. King George V. He had been crowned the year before. Well, not crowned. He was named king the year before. I'm sorry. My brain is everywhere. He was named the king the year before. I believe he was crowned in 1912. He might have been crowned by the time Titanic went out, but I don't know off the top of my head. There's a difference between the king ascending the throne versus being I keep hearing stuff. Versus being coronated, sorry. See, I would just love to just walk into these rooms. Scotland Road. Super says, Alex, I don't know much about trains. Any reason why piston-driven steam trains are more common while steam turbine ones aren't even in the scene? Mostly it's because the steam turbine ones were more expensive to make. Now, they had a bunch of issues. It required a lot more machinery installed aboard the locomotives, and that just made them more expensive. So it wasn't impossible or anything. It wasn't like, oh, it was just, you know, it was difficult to make them function. It was just that they were such a new thing at the time, and then, you know, it was just a lot of machinery to install on one locomotive. And for that reason, the technology hadn't been perfected for steam locomotives. And everybody was just like, you know what? Piston engines are just a lot better for locomotives. And ultimately, that's correct. Piston locomotives were a lot better than steam turbine locomotives. But on ships, there was plenty of room to install a steam turbine system. So we were already in there. So yeah. Chilling says, "Hi Alex, did you mean seacocks?" Yes, I did. Sorry, I'm still learning all the vocabulary. Hello, Ryan. Ryan says they got the Queen of the Queens book. Awesome. Knuckles says apparently the Baltic and Adriatic were larger than the first two of the big four. Okay. Yeah, see, there's a lot I don't know. Chilling. Welcome back. And yes, this is the microphone that I was saving for back then. Yeah. I love this microphone. Let's see. Thomas Brooks says Edward V was crowned. There was no Edward V. Because you see the last, let's see. Well, no, there was an Edward V actually. No, what I'm thinking of is, I'm sorry, I'm getting really confused. So the last Edward to be on the British throne was King Edward VIII, who was the one that abdicated. But before him was Edward VII, who was the son of Queen Victoria. So when Queen Victoria died in 1901, her son ascended the throne. That was King Edward VII. And so he reigned from 1901 to 1911 when he died. And when he died, his son, George V, took over. And George V remained king until 1936. So 1911 to 1936. And he never got to see the Queen Mary go on her maiden voyage. He died a few months before that. But yeah, he did. He was the King George V was there for the launching of the RMS Queen Mary. So when you think about it, King George V was around long enough to see Titanic go on her maiden voyage and to see Queen Mary launch. But there was, Edward V was way before the 1900s. Edward V was like, geez, I don't even know. Yeah, it was King George V was crowned. Let's see. Yeah, to always see. Yeah, I see you. You corrected yourself later. Okay, I just had to scroll down a bit. Let's see here. This is the multi-purpose room. So it was, you know, it was decked over for the cargo hatches, but it could be used by third class as a multi-purpose room, kind of like a main lounge and stuff like that. They had a lounge, and we'll go to that in a little bit. But yeah, this was just a large room that was used for multi-purpose. And in fact, this room made it into the movie Titanic. It was the scene where Jack and Rose were dancing. Of course, in the film, these ventilators were not here. They removed it to make a more open room for the movie. But yeah. Now let's go to the aft end of the ship to see other third-class spaces. As far as I know, they don't connect down here yet, but they might connect when the next demo is released. I mean, all right, so let's see. I forgot. Yeah, C deck. Okay, I had to think about it for a minute. What deck I had to go to get to the third class aft. So let's see if we can run. Here we are. Yeah, I love having this. Now, since we're gonna take me a while to get there. I was actually having a conversation both last night and today with somebody in the comments section. They saw my top 10 my top 10 favorite liners video, and they were surprised that Titanic wasn't on there. And but long story short, Titanic is not on my top 10 of favorite ships. That doesn't mean I don't like Titanic. That doesn't mean I don't think Titanic's beautiful. It's just that in the way I rate things is based off of what intrigues me the most, what interests me at that moment. And Titanic is not in the top 10 of that. It would probably be 11 of the top 10. That's because there's already a lot of information out there about Titanic. It's easy to find if I want to find it. So, you know, it's not something that's like constantly intrigues me and keeps me up at night thinking about stuff. Instead, there are other liners that keep me up at night, making me wonder things, you know, like the QE2, the RMS Queen Elizabeth, the, you know, stuff like that. Those ships have inspired wonder in me. And so Titanic did when I was a kid, but I never researched Titanic. I think a lot of people make the mistake in thinking that I'm exactly like them. I started off, you know, loving ocean liners with Titanic, but that wasn't the case. Titanic was the first ocean liner I ever knew about, and it was the only ocean liner at the time that I thought was beautiful or interesting. But Titanic did not get me interested in ocean liners. I never once researched Titanic in all the years that I was interested in the ship. I didn't research it. I didn't do anything. It was just, I loved the movie, and I loved looking at pictures of the Titanic when I saw them, not when I looked for them. I never researched Titanic in my whole life until after I became interested in Queen Mary. Queen Mary was the ship that got me into ocean liners, believe it or not. And the reason is because my friends wanted to visit the Queen Mary in January of 2020. I was not interested in visiting the ship at the time. I just was like, oh, it's just some ship. But my friends were like, hey, we're going to hang out there and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll tag along. And so I went to the Queen Mary, and the second I stepped aboard the ship, it was like something clicked. I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this ship. And ever since then, I was fascinated with learning more details about the Queen Mary. And through the Queen Mary, I learned about the Queen Elizabeth, learned about QE2, learned about Queen Mary 2, learned about Oceanic of 1899, learned about, you know, Mauritania, Lusitania. So Queen Mary was the ship that got me interested in other ships. It wasn't the Titanic. So even though Titanic was the first ship I ever knew, it was not the ship that got me interested in other ships. And even to this day, I love and appreciate Titanic, but it is not on my top 10 of favorite ships. Now that I know more about other ships, the other ships interest me the most because they seem like the underdogs, or even just the outsiders, the ones that people don't talk about as much. Titanic is talked about by everybody, so it's not like it's in need of some love. You know, there are other ships I think that aren't talked about as often and are more in need of attention and love. And that's just how I've always been. I've always been interested in the stories that other people don't look at. Even my favorite movies are like weird movies that are not, you know, like one of my favorite movies is The Dark Crystal by Jim Henson. That's a movie that I consider like a masterpiece, but most people would be like, oh, that's a weird movie. I've just always been like that. I've always been interested in the stuff that not as many people are interested in. So, but Titanic is, you know, it's a lovely ship, but it's not on my top 10. It's like more like number 11. Actually, Olympic would be number 11. Titanic would be number 12. Olympic is number 11 because Olympic has like a nice war history to it. So there's actually a lot of interesting stuff when it came to World War I and stuff like that. So Olympic is technically number 11. Titanic is number 12 on my list. Britannic is like number 22 or something. Britannic, I'm not interested in Britannic at all. So this is the third class smoking room. I know I kind of just rushed through it, but this is the third class smoking room. So yeah. And then the other one I rushed through was the third class lounge. So children and women were not allowed in the third class smoking room, but they were allowed, everybody was allowed in the third class lounge. And like I said, if they needed more space, they could use the multi-purpose room that was further out on the ship. Yeah, I only started researching Titanic, I would say after I learned about the Queen Mary, because once Queen Mary got me interested in ocean liners, that's when I was kind of like, okay, well, I kind of want to know how this compares to Titanic. And so I started researching a bit more about Titanic, but by no means am I at all even close to knowledgeable about Titanic compared to the others. If anything, compared to the others, Titanic is kind of like the unknown to me in comparison. Oh, I can't go down this way. Could have sworn there was a door. Oh, here's the door. This leads, well, the door would have been locked when the ship was in service, but this leads to the second class. Little Gamer says, burn your PC, stand still and set graphics to max. Actually, I can set the graphics to max. They are, well, actually, currently the graphics are on max. The only thing I don't have checked right now is I forget what it's called, but something to do with the light rays. I forget what it's called, but yeah, pretty much all my graphics settings are on max. My computer can handle the game. It's just that when it's just that the thing is that when I have the ray tracing, that's what's called ray tracing. When I have the ray tracing turned on, it makes the stream run slower. Now, on my end, it looks fine. I can play the game with ray tracing and it works just fine, but you guys will get a delay. So actually, this will not burn my computer. I have a pretty powerful computer. Not the most powerful gaming computer there is, but it's pretty strong on the gaming side. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt my computer at all. I mean, you can see that I'm literally running through the ship and it's all loading very quickly for me. So it, you know, there's like a lag, there's like a boop, and then all of a sudden it's all loaded. But, you know, for me, it's fine. All right, let's go up to the boat deck and go to the bridge. We've actually explored a lot of the ship already in just an hour. That's crazy. This isn't the boat deck, but it's a cool deck nonetheless. Oh, I forgot this ladder is accessible. I forgot about that. I could have just crawled up there, but yeah, you can see there's this little area for. It's like a promenade, you know. So it's funny. They have a covered promenade, and then they have this half-covered promenade for second class. Chilling says Jim Henson of the Muppets fame, or was it Sesame Street? Jim Henson created both Muppets and Sesame Street. But yeah, he was the same guy who did the Dark Crystal. So the Dark Crystal is actually an interesting concept because Jim Henson wanted to create a serious movie that involved puppets, but he didn't want it to be Muppets puppets. He wanted literal, like, lifelike looking creatures, and he wanted to make a serious movie, and you know, and it was going to be all about protecting the natural world. If you think about it, it was actually kind of Avatar before there was Avatar. But yeah, so it was his lifelong dream to make the Dark Crystal, and he finally accomplished it. Had to spend most of his own money to do it because almost nobody wanted to finance it. And he got it done, and it did not do very well at the box office. That doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means that people were not prepared to see a movie like that. When people see a serious movie, they wanted to see live action. They didn't want to see puppets doing it. And so, and when they did see the movie, it was a bit weird. You know, there was no humans in there at all. It was only creatures from this other world. And, you know, and the whole thing is you're watching the entire movie and it's entirely acted out by puppets. But it's one of the, even to this day, it is considered the best puppeted movie, the best puppeted puppet movie there is, because of the experts, all the puppet experts that did that movie. So, but the thing was, it did make Jim Henson very sad because he worked really hard on it. It was, if you think about it, this is the man who created Sesame Street and the Muppets. But the most passionate thing he loved was more than those was the Dark Crystal, and it didn't do well. So it's become a cult classic. So they even created a show on Netflix that is a prequel to the movie. The show is really good. It's called The Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance, and it's really good. If you guys haven't seen it, try to watch it. It's really good. But even Age of Resistance didn't do well, so they canceled it after the first season, and that kind of sucks because it needed one more season to be complete, at least. But yeah, the thing was so Dark Crystal was successful. It just wasn't like overwhelmingly successful. By the way, we're going up to the compass. Sorry, I can't think. They've darkened it because I guess they weren't ready to you know, make it so you can see the compass inside. But this is the compass platform. It's located amidships. This is technically the most stable part of the ship on the upper deck. And so that's where you'd want to put the compass because, you know, if the ship's going to be rolling and you need to take readings from the compass, you want the compass to be as stable as possible. So this is the area of the ship where they put it. And so if there was definitely a lot of wind and the seas were choppy and they needed to read the compass, they wouldn't use the one on the bridge. They'd come over here. It's interesting. I wonder if Queen Mary had a compass platform somewhere amidships. I would have to look into that because, you know, you can see this compass platform you know, on everything from blueprints of the Titanic to models built of the Titanic. But when you look at Queen Mary, she didn't have anything like that. But I wonder if there was an area located on the top decks where they had a compass. There were lots of compasses on Queen Mary, though. There were compasses at the stern, at the bow. You know, some of them were like inside the ship, you know, like on F deck and stuff like that. So, yeah, kind of weird. Now, I would go up here to the bridge, but this gate doesn't allow you to go that way. We're have to go a little bit of the long way. Not too long. Miles says, a woman lived on RMS Coronia for 14 years. Yeah, I heard about that. There are people who live on cruise ships even today. To be honest, it sounds kind of cool. I mean, they, you know, and the cruise ships let them because the cruise ships get a lot of consistent money, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. Like, it makes you wonder, why don't they build, like, why don't they, like, take cruise ships and build them into permanent housing? You know, it sounds like that's something a lot of people would do. It makes the cruise ships a lot of money, and it's cheaper for the people that live. Like, the people who live on those cruise ships say that they're spending less money than they were when they lived on land. Now, maybe they owned a mansion, and living on a cruise ship is cheaper than owning a mansion. I don't know. But they say it's cheaper to live on a cruise ship. So part of me is wondering, why don't we all just live on cruise ships? Like, what's going on here, you know? Like, that'd be interesting. If anybody knows more about that, let me know. But yeah, there's a lot of stories of people who lived on ocean liners and cruise ships. This is the top of the elevator shafts. There were 3 lifts on the Titanic, and these are the lift motors. Just for a comparison, Queen Mary, which launched in 1934, went to service 1936. Queen Mary had 22 elevators. 22. A great number of them were used for service. So I guess in terms of guest elevators, there were 10, I think, or 10 or 12 guest elevators. So passengers could use, passenger elevators. But there were almost an equal, if not greater number of service elevators on Queen Mary. Lifts, sorry. But yeah, Titanic had only 3. Well, technically, Titanic had another one. It had a service lift for the mailroom. There might have been more service lifts around Titanic, but I really couldn't tell you. Here's the Marconi room, you guys. This is where the messages would have been sent out by telegraph. Riker says, I'm going to download the demo, just wondering if I need to pay it all. No, the demo is completely free. Little Gamer says, take a seat in the lounge and read some comments. That's a good idea. We'll go to the lounge very soon. The first class lounge. Let me close this door. The electronics room for the Marconi wireless. And then the place where the wireless operators slept. The wall was not soundproof, so actually they shared the same ceiling, so you could hear the wireless tapping all night. We'll go to the bridge, and then we'll go to the main lounge so I could read some comments. Come on. So go to the bridge. You have to, so remember, we came through this door here. You saw this hallway ahead of us. We turn immediately left. Marconi Wireless is on the left. But if you go all the way to the end and turn right, straight ahead is the bridge. You can't go the other way in this demo because it doesn't connect. I like these little like heaters. These These are heaters located along the edge of the hallway. They go for like maybe 15 feet or so. Here is the wheelhouse of the bridge. Riker says, what's the 2 closets in your room? I'm not in my bedroom. I live in, this is a studio apartment. So right behind me is my, what do you call it? A Murphy bed. It's designed to fold up into the wall. So the part that's lit up in blue is the Murphy bed. What looks like the closet to next to it, I don't know what direction it is to you guys, but next to it, the closet is not a closet either. It's a display. So if I opened it, there's a bunch of like stuff I've collected that's on display. So it's just a little display area. But I have it closed because, you know, on these live streams, it's not like you can see what's in there anyway. It's so tiny on the screen. But yeah. I love my studio apartment. This is one of the bridge wings. I always thought Titanic's bridge wings were weird because, you know, the way a bridge wing is supposed to work is you look out this way and you can see the side of the ship, or you're supposed to be able to see the side of the ship. You can't see too much of the side of the ship from up here. But you're supposed to be able to see the side of the ship looking forward, and then when you look aft, you should still be able to see the side of the ship to see what's going on. But look at this. You have, you know, the davits and the lifeboats blocking your view. How are you supposed to be able to look out and see, you know, the aft end of the ship unless you lean out this window and look over, which is dangerous. It's almost... these bridge wings are almost pointless. So that's why I never understood about Titanic's bridge wings. They were just kind of pointless. These are called telegraphs as well. These are the telegraphs that operate the various things. The other bridge wing to this side. But you can't see over the side of the ship. You have to lean out the window, which is, again, dangerous. All right, let's make our way to the first class main lounge. Ivan wants to see Cafe Parisien. Okay, we can do that. Moonzer says, has Queen Mary reopened yet? Nope, I would have made an announcement on my channel. Don't worry, you guys will know. All you have to do is tune into the channel. You'll see a thing that talks about when the ship fully reopens to everybody. It has opened for free public tours, which were all booked up, so they're all booked. But so technically speaking, it is open. It's just not open to everybody. But there will be an announcement on my channel when it happens or before it happens. So don't worry about that. I'm not going to forget, you guys. Trust me, I'm not going to forget. We've been on this channel waiting the last 2 years on this channel at least for Queen Mary to reopen. So I'm not going to let you down. Little Gamer says, would you board a space hotel? If it's actually in space, no. I would never want to go up into space. I love being on planet Earth. But if there was a space-themed hotel here on Earth, then yeah, I'd be happy to go there and see it. see what it's all about. But if it's going to be that Star Wars hotel that Disney built, definitely not. That hotel looks like it just sucks. Ivan says, which do you like more, the night mode or day mode? Personally, I like the night mode more. Such a cozy vibe. You know, I actually like the night mode more as well because I like seeing all the lights on and stuff like that. But every time I ask people, do you want to see night mode or day mode? Most of the people always want to see day mode. I guess they just don't feel the same way about night mode as we do, you know. But I think night mode looks better because it's so cool. All the lights are on and everything's golden. It's just beautiful. The daylight is nice. It really is. It's just that, I don't know, there's something magical about night mode on Titanic. But not as many people ever want to see it. I think behind me, no, it's the other side. Okay, never mind. We'll have to cut through the lounge. Oh, I forgot I have to push. I was like, why isn't the door moving? I forgot you have to push it. This is the reading and writing room, so we'll go ahead and just look in here real quick since we're right here. Here we go. Reading and writing room. NCC says second class had a single lift. That's right, second class had a lift. And in fact, you can explore the lift in this version of Titanic Honor and Glory. The lift is on, I want to say C deck is where it's stationed at. So you can actually go into the lift on that level. But it could be C deck, it could be B deck. One of those two. The lift is on there somewhere. Moonzer, there were only 3 lifts in first class. Derpy says that Olympic had a refit where the bridge wing cabs were pushed out further. I didn't know that. Uncle says, have you previously, or are you planning on, making a video about the Union Castle Line's 4 funnel liners? This is the first I'm ever hearing of their existence. I've never heard of Union Castle Line, or the fact that they had 4 funnel liners. So this is completely new to me. I'll eventually look into it, and if I think I can make some interesting videos about it, then I will. But I only make videos that I think will be interesting. If I think they might not be very interesting, it's not likely I'll do it. But, Riker says, is there a wake in the back? No, because in this demo, the ship is not moving. It's sitting in the middle of the ocean. So there's no wake. So this is the first class main lounge on Titanic. Ivan says, where would you spend most of your time if you were sailing on Titanic? Me personally would chill in Cafe Parisien or the Palm Courts most of the time. If I was on Titanic, I would probably spend most of my time here in the first class main lounge, and then also probably some time at the what do you call it? What was that other restaurant called? The a la carte restaurant. I think that's a beautiful restaurant. I would definitely be eating there a lot, and especially because everything there is a la carte. So I don't have to sit there for hours and dine on several different, you know. So here we are sitting in the main lounge. Pretty neat. It's really beautiful. I love the wall paneling. I don't remember what wood the wall paneling is made of here. It could be oak, it could be maple. I'm not very good at identifying all of them. I'm still very new to wood paneling. I know what my favorites are, and I can spot them from a mile away, but not all of them. At night, you can see that chandelier lit. It looks really amazing. Ocean Channel says, can you go to the pool? I did that earlier in the live stream. So later on when the live stream's over, just go all the way back to the beginning. The pool is one of the first places I went. Riker says, did they store any vehicles on Titanic during sailing? As far as I know, yes, there was a vehicle that was a kit vehicle, which means that you put it together yourself. And it was still in its crate when Titanic was sailing. And so to my knowledge, yes, there was one vehicle on Titanic, but it was not put together. It was in its crate. But that is the vehicle to which James Cameron based the love scene in his movie Titanic, except in that version, the car was fully assembled. What is happening out there? It's like the apocalypse. Yeah, so yeah, he based that vehicle on the one that was in the crate that was not fully assembled. Here is a cool little feature that you can find on old ocean liners. These are buttons. These are call buttons for the stewards. You press the button and the steward knows what part of the room you're in, and they can attend to your needs. They had that especially on Queen Mary as well. Again, it's probably on a lot of ocean liners, but I'm not so much an ocean liner. I'm not as well versed in most ocean liners as I am the Queen Mary, so I always return to Queen Mary as my comparative thing. But yeah, there were little buttons everywhere for calling the stewards. Now let's go to the smoking room. Chris Butler says, and it still is in its crate. Yeah, that's true. They haven't recovered it yet, so it's still in its crate. It's still technically brand new. It might be a bit eaten away by rusticles or something, but it's still brand new, never used. Ocean Channel says, typical USA noises. Why, you don't have police cars and emergency vehicles in your country? Riker says, how many times did they store the vehicles on the Queen Mary? To my knowledge, there was a lot of vehicles transported aboard Queen Mary. More than could be counted by even both hands, for sure. Over the years, there were dozens of vehicles transported aboard Queen Mary. Yeah. Queen Elizabeth, it's actually kind of funny because Queen Elizabeth was given a larger auto cargo hold because of, I guess, just the number of cars that was being transported and stuff like that. So Queen Elizabeth was given more capacity. I'm not sure that necessarily means Queen Mary was filled to capacity, but I think it's just that, I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions, but yeah, but Queen Elizabeth was given a larger cargo hold for storing automobiles. So, but interestingly enough, the very last automobiles that were transported on the RMS Queen Mary was transported for her last great cruise when she went from Southampton to Long Beach, going around Cape Horn. And the last two vehicles she ever transported were actually London double-decker buses. They were purchased by the city of Long Beach and transported to Long Beach aboard the Queen Mary. And but part of it was for publicity. The idea was that, you see, the two buses were so tall, they were actually stacked on the, let's see, they were stacked on the main deck level aft, and they were outside and strapped down to the deck. And so when they went around Cape Horn, there was a little publicity stunt done where people were loaded into the double-decker buses, so that way they could, get a picture taken, and they could say that they rode a London double-decker bus around Cape Horn. So I have pictures of that. It's pretty neat. But every time I mention Queen Mary going around Cape Horn, I get a lot of people that say, no, Queen Mary went through the Panama Canal. No, she did not. Queen Mary exceeded the width of the Panama Canal at the time by 18 feet and exceeded the length by, I believe, 15 feet of the Panama Canal. So at the time, the Queen Mary was too big to fit through the locks of the Panama Canal, which is why she had to travel around Cape Horn to get to the Pacific in order to sail up to Long Beach. They have since expanded the Panama Canal so much larger ships can fit through it. But yeah, at the time, Queen Mary could not fit through the Panama Canal. In fact, if I have it correctly, they expanded the Panama Canal in 1969. So if the Queen Mary had waited 2 more years, she could have fit through. But yeah. Derpy says the car likely wasn't disassembled, actually. It was a fully built. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, people ask me, how come you don't talk more about Titanic? And this is why. Because every time I open my mouth about Titanic, somebody's got something that is either newer information or something. Like, the things I tell you about Titanic are stuff I learned years ago. And when I talk about it, somebody's always got, well, but there's new information. And, and so stuff like that, it's like, if I talk about Queen Mary, it's the same information that's been around since at least 1967. But with Titanic, there's always new information. I can't keep up with it. And so every time I open my mouth and talk about Titanic, there's always like, someone's like, oh, well, actually, there's something different, which is fine. It's just that I can't keep up with it. So that's why I don't talk about Titanic as much. I know some people think that it's some kind of personal vendetta, like, oh, Alex hates Titanic. He doesn't want to talk about it. That's not why. It's just because I can't keep up with all the information that's always changing about the ship. So yeah, it just feels like every time I talk about Titanic, I'm wrong. And I'm like, but what? I learned that like years ago. And it's like, but that's old information, Alex. You should know better. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I don't know. Derpy could be right about the automobile being fully built. I don't know. I years ago I watched a documentary, and I want to say it was like 2020 when I watched the documentary, and it just said that the car was disassembled and in a crate. Ocean Channel says, I'll never forget my experience in Oregon. Ooh, wonder what that means. Little Gamer says, I only live 2 hours from Long Beach. Nice. So when Queen Mary reopens, you should be able to visit it, right? That's kind of cool. I used to live in Southern California, but been living in Oregon for the last 3 years. So, but it's funny, like, I lived in Southern California my whole life, and I only had been to the Queen Mary maybe less than a handful of times. And it was only the very last time I visited the ship that I actually became obsessed with it. And so it's like, sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I wasted so much time. You know, I could have been aboard the ship multiple times and really appreciated it. Oh, right, I was supposed to go to Cafe Parisien. Okay. There's a way to get there. I think it's through this way. Riker says, when would be the next time Queen Mary would go to dry dock? Nobody knows because they'd have to build one. So Long Beach knows this. They would have to build a dry dock large enough to handle the Queen Mary because they cannot make her leave the harbor of Long Beach because she just is not in good enough shape to leave the harbor. So that doesn't mean she's in terrible shape, like she's going to sink or anything. It just means that they can't guarantee her safety if they make her leave the harbor. So yeah, they would have to build one, and that'll take several years. So it'll be a while. They haven't found the place or created a timeline. So Chris says, "Hey Alex, how far do you live to any of the Pacific Northwest volcanoes?" Well, funny enough, I live almost exactly 50 miles from both Mount St. Helens and Mount Hood. So, but yeah, when you live in the Pacific Northwest, you pretty much live close to a volcano. 50 miles might sound like a lot, but when that thing erupts, you're going to wish you were at least 3 times as far away. 50 miles sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. Like, you can literally, everywhere you drive in Portland and stuff, you can see Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, and there's a third one, and I always mix the name up with another one, so I'm not going to even try. But there's a third one that is a little bit farther away. It's like 60 or 70 miles away, but you can still see it from Portland. So, yeah, you can see the volcanoes from where we live. You know, and especially down the street that I live in, if you look down the street on a clear day, you can see Mount Hood. It's at the end of the street. So, well, I say it's at the end of the street. It looks as if it's at the end of the street. But, yeah, I live closer to volcanoes than I feel comfortable with. By the way, we're in Cafe Parisien right now. But, you know, when I was a kid, I saw the movie Dante's Peak, and that made me frightfully afraid of volcanoes. Like, I could not go to sleep at night because I would have a nightmare about a volcano erupting. And now I live next to one, or a couple. And so, yeah, it does make me nervous when I think about it. I'm like, you know, Mount St. Helens famously just exploded back in 1980. You know, and the 3 volcanoes that I live near are not dormant. They're not considered dormant. They look dormant because you might not see smoke or anything coming from them, but they are not considered dormant. They are considered, you know, low activity. So, yeah, it is kind of freaky when I think about it. This is my favorite restaurant aboard Titanic. This is the a la carte restaurant. And if you were around at the beginning of the live stream when I was going on a rant about how much I love wood paneling, this is the reason why. This restaurant has the most beautiful wood paneling in all of Titanic. I love the marquetry panels on the walls. I love it all. I love the wood pillars with the gold ribbon. This is an example of one of the marquetry panels. I love it. This is probably one of the few places on Titanic that has Art Nouveau style in it. It's a mix of Art Nouveau and neoclassical. But if you were to say, oh, where's a place on Titanic where we can find Art Nouveau style? This would probably be it. I never noticed the serpents on the, are those serpents? Or are they just vines? It looks like the little sign for health. You know how the, like medical industry has the two serpents. That's what it looks like to me. Yeah, so I really like this restaurant. I like the carpeting. Two different shades of red. Well, three if you count the white. The white isn't fully white. It's kind of pink. This is another one of those rooms that looks amazing at night because of the way it's lit. Yeah. Lovely. Brian says, where is Yellowstone? Are you nowhere near Yellowstone? I'm closer to Yellowstone than I was when I lived in Southern California, but I'm still quite far away from it. Yellowstone is like 2 states away. Yeah, like you'd have to cross 2 states to get there. I am still pretty darn far from Yellowstone, but not as far as when I lived in Southern California. Chris says they could use a floating dry dock to get rid of the submarine that is near Arm Queen Mary. I don't see the point because the floating you see, the harbor of Long Beach is not deep enough for a floating dry dock to go in there. It would have to sit outside the harbor of Long Beach, which is over a mile out into the open water. So what's the point in bringing a floating dry dock over if you can't bring it up to the submarine and pull it out? It's pointless, you know. The submarine is also just it's just too rotten. It would have to be cut up where it is in order to remove it. NCC says we also have the threat of that massive earthquake to worry about. Yeah, I know. When you go through Portland, you can see that a lot of the tenants who are in old buildings, like century-old buildings, they have been forced to reinforce the buildings for earthquakes. So sometimes you go by a brick building and you look through the windows and there's big crossbars in the windows because that's what's, helping to stabilize the structure against a massive earthquake. But there's still a lot of old buildings around the Pacific Northwest that have not been retrofitted yet. A lot have not been retrofitted. And yeah, you would not want to be in those buildings during an earthquake. They only implemented the earthquake safety features, the code, the earthquake safety code, in 1995. So there's still a lot of buildings in the Pacific Northwest that just have not been retrofitted. And even if they were retrofitted, it's not a guarantee that they would stay standing during an earthquake. It's just that they're safer than they would have been. This is a cool little spot. Chilling. Yeah, she's not considered Queen Mary's not considered seaworthy. That doesn't mean that necessarily that she would sink. It's just that, you see, she's been designated as a building for so long that any and all changes made to the structure of the ship have all been in building code, not maritime code. So the changes to the structure of the ship were not put in with the idea in mind that she would be rolling around in the water. So yeah, she is certainly not seaworthy for that reason. And it would take a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort to make her seaworthy enough just to be transported out into open water, which is why she can't leave Long Beach Harbor. I know because I used to work with an organization that was dedicated to the preservation of the Queen Mary, and we had been in talks with the city of Long Beach for you know, a few years. I had been personally part of that program for well over a year, and I had spoken to Long Beach officials myself over time, and there's just a general understanding that the ship cannot be transported out of the harbor. It's just not. It would be a lot of work to make that possible. The same kind of work that needs to be done on her anyway. So what the city is considering is building their own dry dock. Because if they build their own dry dock, they can use that dry dock to service other cruise ships and things later on. Of course, the very first customer of that dry dock would be the Queen Mary. But yeah, after the Queen Mary was done, they could use it for cruise ships and stuff and make the city of Long Beach a ton of more money. So Mount Adams, that's right, Mount Adams. I always, because there's nearby somewhere is a Mount Jefferson, and I always confuse Mount Adams and Mount Jefferson. Chris, never heard of the Great New Madrid earthquake. Derpy says the decor of the restaurant officially fell into the category of Louis the 16th, I believe. That's probably, yeah, that's probably true. Again, I am never gonna say, oh, it's absolutely this, because I mean I'm just not that kind of. I'm not. I don't know that much, but let's see. Carl says, what are the chances of the Queen Mary being hit by a tsunami, earthquake, or hurricane? Tornadoes are very unlikely, but California is known to have what are called water spouts during really, really intense weather. Water spouts normally stay off the coast. There's been one or two in my lifetime that have come inland from being on the coast. But, you know, Queen Mary's been around Long Beach for 55. I'm so sorry about the sirens, you guys. Queen Mary's been around Long Beach for 55 years. She's never been struck by a water spout. So the idea of a tornado hitting her, very unlikely. Hurricanes can happen. Technically, the bomb cyclone that is hitting the western United States right now is considered like a Pacific hurricane. It's very low power, but it is technically considered a Pacific hurricane. It's just a cyclone. But yeah, the thing is that hurricanes just don't hit Southern California. They just don't. If they do, they're incredibly low power to the point where, yeah, you have high winds, but it's not dangerously high winds. As for tsunami, yeah, that can happen, but you would have to have a really powerful tsunami, because the entire harbor of Long Beach is surrounded by a breakwater that is located almost a mile out into the water. It is a really large breakwater called Queen's Gate. Believe it or not, it was named before the Queen Mary was even considered coming to Long Beach. So the irony there is pretty cool. Queen's Gate. And that should protect the harbor from tsunamis coming in. It should slow the water down and reduce the wave down to just a rising level of water. And then the Queen Mary herself is surrounded in a breakwater as well. So even the reduced power of the wave coming in would get reduced again coming over the breakwater of the ship. Technically speaking, the Queen Mary was hit by a tsunami in Long Beach, but the tsunami was like a foot tall. It was just an incredibly reduced power tsunami. But I mean, it didn't even make it into the newspapers. It really was not a concern. So, yeah. But the idea of a Queen Mary being hit by a large tsunami, it's possible, but, you know, Southern California has not seen a massive tsunami hit it at least any time since Western civilization took over the area. So yeah, I don't. It just hasn't happened. Just incredibly low. You know, that's why I always tell people, I'm like, you know, as much as people just don't like that the Queen Mary's in Southern California has proven to be the best place for the Queen Mary because the weather is just so mild and natural disasters in the area just don't affect the ship the way it would in other places. Um, let's see. Chilling. Well, no, I'm not apologizing because the sirens are loud. I'm apologizing because I could have closed the window before I did the live stream, which would have made the sirens not as loud. But I didn't close the window because I like having fresh air. Even if it's cold air, I like having fresh air. But I could have closed them and made the sirens quieter. Vincent says, could they save Queen Mary 2 like they did Queen Mary 1? Like I always say, if you have enough money, anything can be done. The thing is that the original Queen Mary was saved not because she was just some ocean liner. She was saved because she was the ocean liner. She was the most famous ocean liner in the world in 1967, even more famous than Titanic at the time. And so it was her fame and her worldwide, you know, recognition for everything, just everything, just you know, her time in the war, you know, her services, you know, during all kinds of disasters and things, and you know, just the fame that she had gathered over the years. That is what saved her. Queen Mary 2 is just nowhere near that level of fame. Nowhere near that level of fame. The Queen Mary 2 would need to be involved in a war or involved in some kind of massive rescue operation or something. You know, even QE2, the reason why QE2 was saved is because QE2 was in the Falklands War, and there was something else that she did that was pretty cool. But it's not coming to my mind. But yeah, she was in the Falklands War, and that's part of her fame. So yeah. So it would take something that really bumped up the fame of Queen Mary 2 to make anyone want to save her from the scrapyard. But that being said, I kind of hope it does happen because, you know, Queen Mary 2 would make a very good floating hotel. You know, she is more equipped than the Queen Mary or QE2 was for being a floating hotel. So Queen Mary 2 would definitely do very well. But that being said, it's just really difficult because these ships are expensive to keep, you know, to keep as hotels. B deck. I wanted to go down one, I think. Axel says, can you see the bridge? We saw that earlier in the live stream, and I'm about to end the live stream, so I don't think so. We're going to go back to where we came, and then I'm going to end the live stream. So when the live stream's over, just rewind it back to the beginning and see all the places that we saw from the very beginning. Ozzy, no snow today. We're in the middle of a bomb cyclone, so the weather's actually pretty warm. You know, right now it's 45 degrees outside. So that's actually pretty warm for winter here. And so yeah, definitely no snow. It's just you know, we have like storm weather. Alrighty, folks. I'm going to end the live stream here because it's pretty much been 2 hours. Well, we do have 5 more minutes before we reach 2 hours, so why don't we just see one more place? We'll go see the mail and cargo holds. Well, we can also see the squash court. You know, Queen Mary had squash courts too. They were located on the sports deck, so high up on the top deck of the ship. And they had a viewing platform kind of just like that for looking down onto the squash court. Then we'll see the mail hold. Oh, I got stuck. There we go. Let's go out this way, and then here. Go down a flight, reach the mail holds. This is where they sorted the mail. Titanic was called RMS Titanic because it was a Royal Mail ship, or Royal Mail steamer, depending on who you ask. And yeah, so that meant that they had a contract for carrying the Royal Mail and the U.S. mail, and they sorted it out, and they did that while they were on their way back and forth across the pond, as they say. Can I squeeze through here? I can, yay. So yeah, lots of areas for sorting. See some postcards from Titanic. And then here is the lift that allowed them to carry the mail up and down from the mail hold. Mail hold is down here. I don't remember how they organized it, but it was like, if it was sitting on the floor, it was either sorted or not sorted, and if it was hanging, it was either sorted or not sorted. I don't remember how it worked. But, yeah. See, big room full of mail, sacks of mail. Then we'll go to the cargo hold. Still have 2 minutes. Come on, open. Okay, there we go. So this is the upper cargo holds. We know because we're still above the water line. There's the windows, or portholes. So we're still above the water line, but if we go down a level, we'll be below the water line, where there are no portholes. More cargo. And in the demo, this is just one of the cargo holds. This is just a tiny little portion. There would have been more. There would have been more levels and things going further down and stuff like that. So people think that this is the only cargo hold on Titanic. It's really not. This is just one little tiny cargo hold on the ship. But anyway, folks, that was the cargo hold. Let's go back to where we came from. I have to go around this way. When version 1.5 of this game comes out, the version that has 50% of the ship available, I will be doing a video tour of that. Both a live stream, so I'll do a live stream for you guys, but then I'll also do a non-live stream. It's just basically me kind of going through the game without talking. So I'll do both. And yeah, I'll download it so you guys can see it. And, you know, I'm really excited for version 2, or version 1.5, I should say, because there's just going to be a lot more to see and do. So yeah, that was Titanic for today. And I'm going to get going. So let's see. NCC says, I wonder when version 1.5 will come out. I can't say when, because there's no official word, but soon, not very soon, but not very far from now. Just soon. So, yeah. All right, folks, I'm going to end the live stream now. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.